I believe that by determining that, you're going to stand out. Now, you'd also have to look at your competition. If everybody is saying the same thing, you're not standing out. But if everybody else is selling Taekwondo and talking about how cheap their classes are and how convenient their thing is and you know, hey, this is what your kid's going to learn and we'll get you to a black belt faster and this and that and the other thing, that's a way different message to a mom who's making this decision, by the way, 95% of the time I would imagine, then we're building stronger families. Get your kid in here, right? So that's how you stand out. Lori?
Two things. One is, there's a TED Talk. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the TED Talks, but there's a TED Talk, and if you look up Simon Sinek, he does a really good talk about why. And he, instead of saying what you do and focusing your brand message on what you do, it's why you do it. Because he's saying people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So that's a really good example of that with the Taekwondo. And the other thing is ask your audience what they want to hear. I think sometimes that's really obvious, but people miss it. You know, do a survey. If you've got a Facebook page, if you have an email list, do a survey and ask people what they want to hear, because they usually like the chance to tell you.
So what are your challenges? What could I be the thought leader on for you, knowing what I know, and what would your perception be so I can find what that is? Yeah.
Yeah, I think what he's done is tagged into the emotions, because we buy on an emotional level. And I think also too is that we're tired of being sold to. So the selling messages, when they are more directed toward our emotions, we're more likely to buy.
And that goes back to the beginning, and this is a totally different way of saying it, but yes, if it's not emotionally binding to me, if I'm not part of a community and I don't feel something towards what you're doing, wow, yeah, why do I care? That goes back to Main Street, that goes back to consistency, that goes back to build a community and publish those things that are going to engage me.
Belco's social media strategy is to be a useful and welcome part of your week. And the reason we think about it that way is the average auto loan lasts between 24 and 30 months. So I have to remain in your consideration set for 2 to 2.5 years before you're going to need another loan from us.
Right.
So how that relates to content is, how can I do that? How can I be useful? How can I be a welcome? Oh, I'm glad that I saw that this week.
Yeah.
So I try to provide information about budgeting, about taxes. Now's the time for everyone's doing their taxes. Ways to be a smarter financial consumer.
Right.
If you're just interested in getting a good auto loan rate, I'm not targeting you. I'm looking for people who are interested in being smarter.
So I agree with that, and we're saying a lot of the same things in different ways, which I think is really good. Don't focus on the product and the attributes of the product that you sell. Peter could every month, every week say, hey, our rates are down to this. Hey, our rates are down to this. Hey, our rates are down to this. Hey, our rates are... I'm going to listen to this every week? No. I need to be a useful and welcome part of your week, and that's going to help me in ways outside of the loan and the product and that other thing. What the hope would be is I have a relationship with you, then I go look to see if the rates are close. And if you're close, based on the experience I'm having with you, you may not even need to be totally close. You might just say, I'm giving these people the business because I'm emotionally tied to what they do. Stan's not saying, I've got the cheapest Taekwondo in town. He's saying, we're building stronger families. You need to be here. What's that worth to a mother? Right? A lot. Let's keep going. How else are people deciding?
As far as how much time should they spend on their pages, I mean, if those are two long-term messages, are they on there every day? Would you say, let's tweet about this every week?
Yeah, I'm going to say this entirely, that it depends on who your audience is and what value you can provide and how often they might want to engage with that. I'm going to go here and then here.
I think, again, it depends on your audience. I work a lot with younger people, and they want stuff all the time. And something else we found that works really well is engaging them to create our content for us.
On what topic matter?
Reproductive health issues. I work with clinics.
Okay, very good. So that's on their mind all day if they're thinking about doing this, right? You know, I mean, if I'm a woman and I want to have a child and right? Am I on board with this? Yeah. So it's on my mind all day, all the time, and I'm thinking about it. Yeah?
So it's, engaging them, they're picking the topics that they want to talk about.
Right.
We have volunteers that actually manage a lot of the sites that we.
How are you asking them? I think we all want to ask, but maybe how do you ask them effectively that gets them telling you about this?
There's a couple great volunteers we have that they feel very passionate about the work that we do. And they're the ones, they'll post questions. They're the ones that draw people in because one, they're using the services and they feel very strongly about why they use the services.
Good.
And they put it out there, and because of their passion, because of their interest, and the fact that they are the ones identifying with the people we're trying to reach.
Yeah.
They get them, they bring them in.
So in Stan's case, or in Peter's case, he could have some moms that he elicits and knocks some money off. Not that the money's important, but says, "Hey, I'd like you to do this," and then they're out there participating. So it's kind of building the community. In Peter's case, some people that they've got loans with that seem like really good people, and get them to start kind of doing things. This is how you're doing this. Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
To address the question about how often, we kind of did it in our mission statement. We want to do it once, twice, maybe 3 times a week, because we're thinking 2.5 years out. So if we're talking to you 4 times a day, then it's going to get a little irritating.
Yeah.
But if your sales cycle is maybe in a restaurant, once the meal's done, it's time to try and get them back in.
Right.
Maybe it would be more often. I don't know. That just off the top of my head.
Yeah, and I think that is important. How often can I engage and provide value, and do you want to hear about what I have to offer? And I think these are great examples of, how often can I do this? And finding out what that experience is. And I think the key is thinking about the experience and the emotion and what you're really trying to say out there, as opposed to selling a product or a service. You would imagine when people have a need for that product or service, that then they're going to go to our website and find out what our product is. Is that? Yeah.
I also want to point out, if I may, that when you put stuff out there, you're speaking to a largely closed audience. These are people who have opted into your message. So because you put something out on Facebook, if you've got 300 fans in your Facebook page, the maximum number of people who are going to see that original message is 300, and probably something quite a bit less than that. So if you're putting out a message that is intended to acquire you more customers, remember, you're speaking to people whom you've already got an engagement. So the question may be to ask, what value can I provide to my existing customers?
And that's where you'll define your personas. Are you doing it for existing? Are you doing it for new? Are you doing it to achieve this or that or the other thing, more referrals? I'm going to say that it can achieve things on several different levels. You won't need to pick exactly one, but you ought to define the priorities so you know who you're trying to engage a little bit. So I'm going to keep going because we have about 3 more minutes left on this. Clearly determine how often and through what mediums you're going to participate. Some of this is going to be based on your resources, Gosh, I want to make sure, but I want to go back to the consistency. If I'm going to decide that I'm going to tweet 3 times a week and I'm going to put out something relevant and I'm doing it to this audience to achieve this goal and I'm going to do this on-brand messaging and I'm going to get these things done, how often can I do that well and do it well? We've asked this group before, how many times do you want to hear from somebody? And kind of the answer was, I'd rather hear from somebody less often with something relevant and something meaningful and something that's good and valuable than hear from somebody a lot. And actually, if I'm going to hear from somebody multiple different times a day, I'm less likely to consume all of the things that they're putting out there, and that might be a little bit counterproductive. So that's what we've kind of heard from this group before, definitely. And then establish publishing and listening tools. How am I going to publish and how am I going to listen to what's going on? And then establish measurement and tracking, which allows you to measure the progress. It depends on what your goals are. If your goals are more contacts, you're going to measure the progress via how many people do I have listening. You're going to look at things. If you're going to measure sales, you're going to hook analytics up to each and every post and each and every tweet and each and everything and see how many people click through, and then you're going to put a conversion code on your tracking form, and people are going to fill out the form, and you're going to say, I got this many leads this month from Facebook, if you really want to get into that. So it depends what your goals are, but figure out how you're going to track it and what you're going to look at, and then make sure you do. So many times people start doing marketing and they're doing it and it feels good and they're out there and they look at the analytics once a month, please. That would be a bottom line thing for me. Why spend time in today's world? We're all so busy if you're not going to look and see if it's generating something for you. So look at that would be really important. And then number 10, on a regular basis, number 9 is schedule. Schedule when you're going to do it. Put it on your calendar. This is just as important as a meeting. This is just as important as getting a proposal out. I do this with consistency. Make sure it happens. Otherwise, your brand is I'm a flake. So do it with consistency and make sure that it's getting out there when people expect it. When do you get your newspaper? You get your newspaper on Sunday morning at 6 a.m. and that's when you go out there and you get it and you go read it. How many people get a newspaper in here? Okay, still a few people. So that's when it happens. If you were going to read your newspaper and the newspaper company said, I'm not sure what day it's going to come out and I'm not sure what time it's going to be there, how many people would get a newspaper? Right? Done. It's got to happen with consistency if I'm going to consume it with some regularity and be a part of your community. I would say that's probably a good idea. And then lastly, measure the results and make plan adjustments. As you're seeing things, maybe you increase the length of what you're doing, or you decrease it, or you make it more brief, or you add a little bit more humor, or a little bit less humor, and you kind of meet your community and see what's going on and how you can do it best. Guys, thank you so much for the conversation today.
Okay, thanks. Hey, you do this as a business, as a profession. What 3 things or 2 things or whatever are the most important things for us as business people that we should focus on to make this work? Because you've heard our point. What's your point? You're in this all the time.
I think the 3 biggest things, 100%, the 3 biggest things is know who your audience is. Make sure you're providing value on a consistent level, something that's going to make their lives better, more enjoyable, more productive, saving more money, whatever it's going to be on brand. And then the last thing is track and measure the results. Top 3 things for sure.